At my son's wedding reception, I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding as I heard my new daughter-in-law's voice ring out clearly. Thank goodness that filthy old woman disappeared. The entire room erupted in laughter, and something inside me shattered into 1,000 pieces that could never be put back together. Can you imagine hearing those words about yourself on what should be the happiest day of your child's life? What would you do if it were you? I remained silent in that doorway, my gift envelope still clutched in my trembling hands. But I already knew that the next day, my phone call to the realtor would forever change what my son thought he had secured. But before I continue, take a quick look to make sure you're still subscribed. I don't want you to miss any of these eye-opening stories. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, and for 43 years I worked as a hospital administrator before retiring 3 years ago. I raised my son Daniel alone after my husband Robert died when Daniel was only 8 years old. I worked 70-hour weeks, missed countless parent-teacher conferences because I was covering double shifts, sold my mother's jewelry to pay for his college tuition when the scholarships didn't cover everything. I wore the same 3 suits for a decade so he could have new clothes for job interviews. And now, standing in the shadows of the country club ballroom I'd rented for his wedding, listening to his bride mock me, those years felt like dust in my hands. I had arrived 2 hours late to the reception. My flight from Boston had been delayed, then canceled, then rerouted through Philadelphia. I'd spent 8 hours in airports, still wearing the cream silk dress I'd bought specifically for this day, my makeup smudged, my carefully styled hair now limp with exhaustion. The $10 million gift I was about to give them was the house of their dreams, a Victorian mansion in the historic district that Daniel had loved since he was a child. I'd liquidated my retirement accounts, sold my own home, moved into a modest apartment. The realtor had the papers ready. One signature from me tomorrow, and the house would be theirs. But I'd missed the ceremony, missed the vows, missed walking my son down the aisle because there was no one else to do it. And now I understood why his text messages had been so cold. Mom, just get here when you can. We're starting without you. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers I'd insisted on. White roses I'd paid for. A champagne fountain I'd approved. 300 guests I'd never met, all laughing at his new wife's toast. I could see Daniel at the head table, his arm around Vivian's waist, smiling. Not stopping her. Not defending me. Vivian was radiant in her $15,000 dress, another gift from me. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon. Her smile was perfect, and her voice carried across the room with practiced ease. To absent mothers who know when to stay away, may she remain absent for many, many years to come. More laughter, more clinking glasses. I noticed something then, something that made my blood run cold. Daniel's business partner, Marcus, wasn't laughing. He was staring at Vivian with an expression I couldn't quite read. Disgust? Fear? He caught my eye across the room, and his face went pale. He knew I was there. He knew I'd heard everything. And then I saw the second thing that didn't fit. On the gift table, surrounded by elegantly wrapped boxes, was an envelope with my handwriting, but it had been opened. The card I'd written, the one explaining about the house, the one that was supposed to be read during the gift opening tomorrow, was nowhere to be seen. My hands started shaking. They knew about the house. They knew I was giving them $10 million in property. And they'd still let her say those words. They'd still laughed. Marcus moved toward me, his face panicked now, but I stepped back into the hallway. My phone was already in my hand. One text message to my realtor. Do not finalize anything. I'm coming to your office first thing tomorrow. What I was about to discover would make that toast just the beginning of a nightmare that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my son, my family, and the 43 years I'd spent building a life I thought mattered. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my airport hotel room, still wearing that cream silk dress, staring at my phone and replaying every text message Daniel had sent me over the past 6 months. Every, I love you, Mom. Every, can't wait for you to meet Vivian. Every, you're going to adore her. The words felt hollow now, like shells of something that had never really existed. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I called my realtor, Richard Chen. We'd worked together for 3 months to close this deal. The Victorian mansion had been off-market, owned by an elderly couple who'd only agreed to sell because Richard had convinced them it was going to a loving family. My loving family. "Richard, I need you to tell me the truth," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Has anyone else contacted you about the property? Anyone claiming to represent me or my son?" There was a pause. A long, terrible pause. "Margaret, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but I received a call last week from someone named Vivian Morrison. She said she was your future daughter-in-law and that you'd asked her to review the final paperwork because you were traveling. I didn't send her anything confidential, but I did confirm that the sale was proceeding as planned." My stomach dropped. "What exactly did you tell her?" "Just that the property was being transferred to Daniel Morrison as a wedding gift, valued at $10 million, and that we were waiting for your signature to finalize everything. She seemed very pleased, said you were the most generous mother-in-law anyone could ask for." I closed my eyes, so she'd known. Not just known, she'd called to confirm it, to make sure the gift was real before the wedding. And then she'd stood in front of 300 people and called me a filthy old woman who should stay disappeared. "Richard, I need you to stall the sale. Tell the sellers there's been a complication. Don't cancel it yet, but don't finalize anything. Can you do that?" "Of course, but Margaret, is everything all right? The sellers are elderly. They've already made plans to move to assisted living. If we back out now..." "I'm not backing out. I'm investigating. I'll call you back in 48 hours. I hung up and opened my laptop. Something was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Vivian wasn't just cruel. She was calculating. She'd verified the gift, then publicly humiliated me, knowing I'd hear about it eventually, unless she never expected me to hear about it, unless she thought I really wouldn't show up. I pulled up Daniel's social media. His Facebook was set to private now, but his Instagram was public. I scrolled through photo after photo of him and Vivian. Romantic dinners, weekend trips, her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist. They looked happy. They looked in love. Then I found the comments. Hundreds of them, from people I'd never heard of. But one caught my eye, from someone named Jessica Hartwell. "V, you did it again. Third time's the charm, right? LOL. Third time?" I clicked on Jessica's profile. It was public, and there, buried in photos from 2 years ago, was a picture of Vivian in a wedding dress. Different dress, different groom. Caption: "Congratulations to Vivian Chen on her marriage to Robert Ashford. May this one last longer than the previous one." My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped the laptop. I searched for Vivian Chen and Robert Ashford and found a society page announcement from 2 years ago. Married in June. Divorced in November. I searched for the first marriage. Found it in a small-town newspaper from 5 years ago. Vivian Chen weds Thomas Brighton. Divorced 8 months later. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, both to wealthy men. Both ending quickly. And now she was married to my son, who was about to inherit a $10 million property. I tried to rationalize it. People get divorced. It doesn't mean anything sinister. Maybe she'd been unlucky in love. Maybe she'd finally found the real thing with Daniel. Maybe that toast was just poor judgment, too much champagne, a stupid joke that went too far. But I couldn't shake the image of Marcus's face, the panic when he saw me, the fear. I picked up my phone and did something I'd never done before. I called Daniel's business partner directly. "Marcus, this is Margaret Morrison. We need to talk about my son's wedding. We need to talk about Vivian. And we need to talk about why you looked terrified when you saw me standing in that doorway last night." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, in a whisper that made my blood run cold, "Mrs. Morrison, are you somewhere safe? Somewhere private? Because what I'm about to tell you, you need to be sitting down." Marcus's breathing was ragged on the other end of the line. I could hear him moving, a door closing, the sound of traffic fading as if he'd stepped inside somewhere more private. "Mrs. Morrison, I've been trying to find a way to tell Daniel for 3 months. I've rehearsed it 100 times, but every time I get close, Vivian is there, watching, listening. She's always there." "Tell him what, Marcus? What's going on?" 2 weeks after Daniel introduced us to Vivian, I recognized her. Not her face. She'd changed something about her appearance, maybe her hair color, I don't know. But her voice. that laugh. I'd heard it before, at a business conference in Miami 18 months ago. She was with a man named Robert Ashford, a real estate developer. They were newly married, she said. She was hanging on his arm, charming everyone, making connections. I remember thinking she was smart, strategic, too strategic. My heart was pounding. Go on. 3 months later, I saw Ashford at another conference. He looked destroyed, hollow. I asked him about his wife, trying to be polite. He just stared at me and said, "If you ever meet a woman named Vivian Chen, run and don't look back." Then he walked away. I didn't think much of it at the time. People get bitter after divorces. But then Daniel introduced you to Vivian. Yes, and I couldn't say anything because I wasn't sure. The woman I'd met in Miami was blonde. This Vivian is brunette. The woman in Miami said she was from California. This Vivian claims she's from Vermont. Different last name now. She uses Morrison, obviously, but before Daniel, she was going by Vivian Laurent, not Chen. I started digging, Mrs. Morrison. Quietly, carefully. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. What did you find? She's done this before, multiple times. She finds wealthy men, usually older or vulnerable. She marries them quickly. Then there's always some kind of financial windfall, an inheritance, a business deal, a gift from family. And then, within a year, she's divorced and disappeared, and the money's gone with her. She's been using different variations of her name, different backstories, but it's the same pattern every single time. The room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the hotel desk to steady myself. How many times, Marcus? How many men? At least 5 that I could confirm. Maybe more. Mrs. Morrison, she's a professional. She studies her targets. She becomes exactly what they need. With Daniel, she became the perfect wife for a man who lost his father young and desperately wants to build a family. She knew about you. She knew about the house. She's known about that $10 million gift from the beginning. How? I didn't tell Daniel until last month. Did you tell anyone else? A friend? A lawyer? Anyone who might have mentioned it in passing? I thought back. My attorney, Susan, who'd helped me restructure my assets. We'd had lunch at a restaurant near Daniel's office. Had we been overheard? Had someone... Mrs. Morrison, there's more. The night before the wedding, I followed Vivian. I know how that sounds, but I had to know. She met someone at a bar downtown. A man. They were close, familiar. I took photos. I heard him typing on his phone. I'm sending them to you now. My phone buzzed. I opened the message with trembling fingers. The photos were grainy but clear enough. Vivian in a dark coat, sitting across from a man in his 50s. They were leaning close, her hand on his arm. In another photo, they were laughing. In the third, he was handing her an envelope. Who is he? His name is Gordon Reeves. He's a private investigator, but not the legitimate kind. He specializes in background research for people who want to disappear or create new identities. I think he's her partner, Mrs. Morrison. I think they've been working together for years. The toast echoed in my mind. Thank goodness that filthy old woman disappeared. Not a joke, not cruelty. A wish. They wanted me gone. They wanted me to disappear so they could take the house and vanish before anyone realized what had happened. Marcus, why didn't you tell me this before the wedding? Why didn't you tell Daniel? His voice broke. I tried. God help me, I tried. The week before the wedding, I asked Daniel to meet me for coffee. I brought printouts, evidence. But Vivian showed up. She said Daniel had told her about our meeting, that they didn't keep secrets from each other. She sat down, smiled at me, and said, Marcus has concerns about our relationship, darling. Let's hear them. How could I accuse her with her sitting right there, looking at me with those eyes? Daniel was so happy, so in love. I chickened out. I told myself maybe I was wrong, maybe it was all coincidence. But you don't believe that? No, especially not after last night. Mrs. Morrison, when I saw you in that doorway, I knew you'd heard the toast. I knew everything was about to explode. Vivian saw you too. Just for a second, her mask slipped. She looked at you with such hatred, such cold calculation. Then she turned back to the crowd and kept smiling like nothing had happened. As I tried to connect the dots, I got curious. Where are you listening to me from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I like to imagine these stories echoing in so many different places. I stared at the photos on my phone. Vivian, with her mysterious partner. Vivian, who had researched me, studied my son, engineered this entire relationship for a $10 million payoff. Marcus, I need you to send me everything you found, every piece of evidence, every connection you made. Can you do that? Yes, but Mrs. Morrison, be careful. If she realizes you're investigating, if she knows you're going to pull the gift, I don't know what she's capable of. These photos, this evidence, I have copies hidden in 3 different places. Cloud storage, a safety deposit box, with my attorney. I've been preparing for the possibility that something might happen to me. The fear in his voice was real, palpable. Do you really think she's dangerous? Physically dangerous? I think she's desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. The house was supposed to be transferred tomorrow, right? She's expecting that money. She's probably already made plans with Reeves. When she finds out the deal fell through, when she realizes you're onto her. He trailed off, but I heard what he wasn't saying. I'm going to the police. With what? Everything I found is circumstantial. Different marriages under different names aren't illegal. Meeting with a private investigator isn't a crime. Being cruel at a wedding isn't prosecutable. We need more, Mrs. Morrison. We need proof of actual fraud or intent to commit fraud. We need to catch her in the act. Then that's what we'll do. Send me everything. I'll start looking for connections you might have missed. There has to be something. Financial records, communications, something that proves this is a pattern of criminal behavior. Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. How much does Daniel know? Is it possible he's in on this? The question hit me like a physical blow. My son. My Daniel, who I'd raised alone, who I'd sacrificed everything for. Could he be part of this conspiracy? Could he have brought this woman into our lives knowing what she was? I thought about his cold text messages, his absence during my arrival, the way he'd smiled while Vivian mocked me. I don't know, I whispered. God help me, Marcus. I don't know anymore. Then we need to find out, because if Daniel is involved, this isn't just about money. It's about something much darker. And Mrs. Morrison, if that's true, you might be in more danger than you realize. I hung up the phone and stared at my reflection in the hotel mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger, older than I remembered, more tired, but there was something else in her eyes now, something hard and determined. They thought I would disappear quietly. They thought I was just a filthy old woman who didn't matter. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Daniel called me at 9:30 in the morning. I was sitting in my hotel room, surrounded by printouts of Marcus's evidence, my hands still shaking from 3 cups of black coffee and 0 hours of sleep. Mom, where are you? You left the reception without saying goodbye. Vivian is upset. She wanted to thank you personally for everything. His voice was cheerful, casual, as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't heard his wife call me a filthy old woman while he sat there smiling. I'm at a hotel near the airport. My flight was exhausting. I needed to rest. Well, we need to talk about the house. The realtor called this morning saying there's been some kind of delay. Mom, what's going on? We were supposed to get the keys today. There it was. Not, how are you feeling? Not, I'm sorry you missed the ceremony. Not even, thank you for the incredibly generous gift. Just immediate concern about the house. Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. How long have you known Vivian? A pause. Too long. We've been together for 8 months, you know that. We met at that charity gala in March. That's not what I asked. I asked how long you've known her. Mom, what is this about? Are you having second thoughts about the house? Because if you are, you need to tell me now. We've already made plans. Vivian's parents are flying in next week to see it. We've hired an interior decorator. Her parents? I interrupted, my voice sharp. Tell me about Vivian's parents, Daniel. Where are they from? What do they do? Another pause. They're from Vermont. Her father is retired. Her mother works in, I think, hospitality? Mom, why are you asking me this? Because I want to know if you've ever actually met them. Because I want to know if they're even real. The silence on the other end was deafening. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means I've been doing some research, Daniel. It means I know about Vivian's previous marriages. It means I know about Robert Ashford and Thomas Brighton. It means I know your wife has done this before. found wealthy men, married them quickly, taken their money, and disappeared. You're insane. His voice was cold now. Dangerous. You spent one night at my wedding, heard one joke that you took completely out of context, and now you're making up conspiracy theories? Mom, I knew you were jealous, but this is... Jealous? Daniel, she called me a filthy old woman. She toasted to my absence, and you sat there and let her do it. It was a joke, dark humor. You don't understand Vivian's sense of humor because you don't know her. You've barely spent 5 minutes with her because you're always too busy, always too important. Always putting your work first, like you did my entire childhood. The words cut deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. I put my work first so you could have a childhood, so you could go to college, so you could start your business. Everything I did for you. No, everything you did for yourself. To prove you didn't need Dad. To prove you could do it all alone. And now that I'm finally happy, finally building a life with someone who actually puts me first, you can't stand it. You can't stand that someone else matters more to me than you do. My heart was breaking, but I forced myself to stay focused. Daniel, please just listen to me. There's evidence. Marcus has been investigating. Marcus? He laughed, bitter and harsh. Of course it's Marcus. He's been trying to sabotage my relationship with Vivian from the beginning. He's jealous that I'm getting married, that I'm moving on with my life while he's still single and miserable. And now he's poisoned you against her too. He's trying to protect you. He found photos, records, proof that Vivian has done this multiple times. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your paranoid delusions or Marcus's jealous lies. Here's what's going to happen, Mom. You're going to call the realtor right now and finalize the sale of that house. You're going to apologize to Vivian for your behavior. And you're going to accept that I'm married to the woman I love, whether you approve or not. And if I don't? The pause was shorter this time. Colder. Then I don't have a mother anymore. Your choice. He hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. This was my son, my baby, the child I'd rocked to sleep every night after his father died, the teenager I'd helped with homework at midnight because I worked all day, the young man I'd been so proud to watch build his own business. And he'd just chosen a woman he'd known for 8 months over the mother who'd spent 43 years sacrificing everything for him. I wanted to believe he was being manipulated. I wanted to believe Vivian had gotten inside his head, twisted his thinking, made him see me as the enemy. But the venom in his voice, the practiced way he'd turned my sacrifice into selfishness, the ease with which he'd threatened to cut me out of his life, it all felt too natural, too prepared. Marcus's question echoed in my mind. Is it possible he's in on this? I pulled up the photos Marcus had sent. Vivian with Gordon Reeves, the private investigator. I zoomed in on the envelope Reeves was handing her, enhanced the image as much as my phone would allow. There was writing on the envelope, faint but visible. D. Morrison, background complete. Daniel Morrison. They'd investigated my son, researched him, probably found out everything. His business finances, his relationship with me, his vulnerabilities after losing his father young, his desire for a perfect family. But when had they started? Before the charity gala in March? Months before? I opened my laptop and searched for the charity gala Daniel had mentioned. Found the guest list. Daniel's company had bought a table. He'd attended with Marcus and 4 clients. Vivian's name wasn't on the guest list. I searched deeper, found photos from the event on social media. Scrolled through hundreds of pictures, found Daniel, found Marcus, found the clients. No Vivian. She hadn't been at the gala. She'd never been at the gala. Their entire origin story was a lie, and Daniel knew it. He had to know it. You don't forget where you met your wife. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Morrison? A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. This is Vivian Morrison. I think it's time we had a conversation. Woman to woman, without Daniel listening, without Marcus interfering, just you and me, because I know what you're trying to do and I know what you think you know, but you have no idea what you're actually dealing with. Meet me at the Victorian house in 1 hour, alone, or I promise you'll regret it for whatever remains of your pathetic life. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, trembling, staring at the phone. Every instinct screamed at me not to go, to call the police, to run. But I thought about Daniel's voice, his anger, his willingness to disown me. And I knew that if I didn't face this woman, if I didn't hear what she had to say, I would lose my son forever, either to her manipulation or to something far worse. I grabbed my purse, checked that my phone was fully charged, and headed for the door. If Vivian wanted a confrontation, she was about to get one. But this time, I wouldn't be the filthy old woman who disappeared. This time, I would stand my ground. The Victorian house looked different in the harsh morning light, less like a dream home and more like a monument to my foolishness. I parked across the street and watched the front door for 5 minutes, looking for any sign of movement. Vivian's car, a white Mercedes I'd helped Daniel buy for her as an engagement gift, was parked in the driveway. I texted Marcus before getting out. Meeting Vivian at the house. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, call the police. Then I turned on my phone's voice recorder and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The front door was unlocked. I stepped into the foyer, and the smell hit me immediately. Fresh paint, new carpet, the scent of a house being prepared for new owners. Except there weren't going to be new owners. Not anymore. Mrs. Morrison, so glad you could make it. Vivian's voice came from the living room. She was standing by the fireplace, wearing jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking nothing like the radiant bride from last night. She looked tired, harder, more real. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said, staying near the door. You wanted to talk. Talk. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're tougher than I expected. Most mothers would have just signed the papers and walked away after their son chose his wife over them. But not you. You had to go digging. You had to involve Marcus. You had to ruin everything. Ruin what? Your con? Your scheme to steal $10 million from my family? Steal! She laughed, cold and sharp. Margaret, I haven't stolen anything. That house was a gift, freely given. You were going to sign those papers tomorrow with a smile on your face, grateful that your son had found such a wonderful wife. I didn't put a gun to your head. I didn't forge your signature. You were going to give me that house because you're a lonely old woman desperate to buy your son's love. The words stung because they had a grain of truth. You manipulated him. You researched him, targeted him, made yourself into exactly what he wanted. I made myself into exactly what he needed, she corrected. There's a difference. Daniel needed someone who would put him first, someone who would make him feel like the center of the universe instead of an afterthought. You think you sacrificed for him. You neglected him. You were too busy building your career, proving you didn't need anyone, to notice that your son was drowning in loneliness. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called him just to talk? Not to discuss business or money or responsibilities, but just to hear his voice. When was the last time you visited him without an agenda? When was the last time you made him feel like he mattered more than your work? I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Because I couldn't remember. God help me, I couldn't remember. Vivian saw my hesitation and pressed harder. I gave Daniel what you never could. Attention, admiration, the feeling that he was important. And yes, I wanted something in return. Is that really so different from what you did? You gave him things, money, opportunities, houses, and expected gratitude, love, loyalty. I gave him emotional support and expected financial security. We're not so different, you and I. We're nothing alike. I'm his mother. I love him. Do you? Or do you love the idea of him? The son you created in your mind? The one who owes you everything because you sacrificed so much? Because the real Daniel, the one I know, is angry. He's been angry for years. Angry at you for making him feel guilty every time he wanted something for himself. Angry at you for turning every conversation into a reminder of how much you gave up for him. You're twisting everything. I'm telling the truth. And deep down, you know it. She moved closer, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not triumph. Something else. Something almost like pity. Margaret, I'm going to make you an offer. One chance to walk away from this with some dignity intact. I'm not giving you the house. I know. The house is gone. I've already accepted that. But there are other things I want. You're going to wire $500,000 to an account I'll provide. Consider it compensation for emotional distress, for the wedding expenses, for the time I've invested in your son. In exchange, I'll disappear. Quietly. No scandal. No public humiliation. I'll tell Daniel I can't handle the pressure of being part of your family. I'll break his heart gently and leave him with his dignity. And you'll get to be the supportive mother who helps him heal. You're insane if you think I'll pay you $1. Then you're a fool. Because if you don't pay me, I'll destroy him. I have emails, Margaret, texts, recordings of Daniel talking about his resentment toward you, private conversations about how he wishes you died instead of his father, how he fantasized about taking your money and cutting you out of his life completely, how he laughed when I suggested humiliating you at the wedding. The room spun. You're lying. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. Daniel's voice filled the room. Sometimes I wish she'd just disappear, just vanish and leave me the hell alone, take her money and her guilt trips and her constant need to be appreciated and just go away forever. I felt like I'd been stabbed. That was my son's voice, my Daniel. That's from 3 weeks ago, Vivian said softly. I have hours of recordings like that, months of texts, evidence that will show the world exactly what Daniel really thinks of you. Evidence that will make every sacrifice you made look pathetic. Every dollar you gave him look like a desperate bid for affection he never felt. Why? Why would you do this? Because I can. Because you people, wealthy, privileged, self-righteous people like you, think you can buy love, buy loyalty, buy happiness. You think money makes you better than everyone else. I just prove you're wrong, over and over again. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy, male. My heart stopped. Gordon Reeves emerged from the second floor, the man from Marcus's photos. He was bigger than I'd expected, his expression cold and professional. Is she going to cooperate? He asked Vivian. She's thinking about it, aren't you, Margaret? I backed toward the door, but Reeves was faster. He moved between me and the exit, not threatening, just present, blocking my escape. Mrs. Morrison, I suggest you listen very carefully, he said. We're offering you a way out. Take it. Because if you don't, things get much worse. For you, for Daniel, for everyone involved. You're threatening me. I'm advising you. There's a difference. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Marcus. Are you okay? Should I come? I needed help. I needed to get out of here. But if I ran now, if I involved the police without proof, it would be my word against theirs. Daniel would believe Vivian. He'd already chosen her side. I need time, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Time to think. Time to get the money together. Vivian studied me, suspicious. 24 hours. Wire the money by this time tomorrow, or I release everything. And Margaret? Don't even think about going to the police. The recordings I have of Daniel, some of them discuss ways to get more money from you, ways that border on illegal. You expose me, I expose him. Your choice. Lose $500,000 or lose your son to a prison sentence. She was bluffing. She had to be bluffing. But the fear in my chest told me she wasn't. I nodded slowly, defeated. 24 hours. Reeves stepped aside, letting me pass. I walked to the door on trembling legs, expecting them to stop me, to hurt me, to do something. But they just watched me go. As I reached my car, Vivian called out from the doorway. Margaret, one more thing. Marcus has been helping you, hasn't he? Investigating me? Gathering evidence? I didn't answer. Tell him to stop. Tell him to delete everything he's found. Because I know where he lives. I know his routines. I know his weaknesses. And if you two keep digging into my past, I'll make sure he has no future. I drove away with my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. But I didn't cry. I didn't break down. Because I'd learned something crucial in that house. Something Vivian had revealed without realizing it. She was scared, scared enough to demand money instead of waiting for the house. Scared enough to threaten me. Scared enough to reveal that she had a partner. That there was a pattern. That this was bigger than just one con. She was scared because she knew I was close to something. Something that could bring her entire operation crashing down. And now I just had to figure out what that something was before the 24 hours ran out. I met Marcus at a coffee shop 40 minutes outside the city, a place where no one would recognize us. He was already there when I arrived, hunched over a laptop, dark circles under his eyes that matched mine. I got your text about meeting Vivian, he said as I sat down. Are you hurt? Did she? She threatened me, demanded $500,000 to disappear, said she has recordings of Daniel saying terrible things about me, said if I don't pay, she'll expose him for some kind of financial crime. Marcus closed his eyes. She's cornered. That's good and bad. Good because it means we're getting close to something that scares her. Bad because cornered animals are dangerous. She mentioned you specifically. Said she knows where you live, knows your routines. Marcus, you need to be careful. I'm always careful. But thank you. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. While you were at the house, I kept digging. I found something, Margaret. Something that connects all of Vivian's victims. The screen showed a spreadsheet with 5 names: Thomas Brighton, Robert Ashford, Michael Chen, David Laurent, and now Daniel Morrison. Look at the pattern. Each marriage lasted between 6 and 11 months. Each divorce was finalized quickly. No fault, minimal press coverage. Each man was wealthy, but not wealthy enough to fight back. And each man, within 2 years of the divorce, experienced a significant financial windfall that Vivian somehow knew was coming. What kind of windfalls? Thomas Brighton's grandfather died 2 months after the divorce, leaving him $8 million. Robert Ashford's company went public 10 months after the divorce, netting him $23 million. Michael Chen won a lawsuit against his former employer for $12 million. David Laurent's startup was acquired for $35 million. My stomach turned. She knew. She knew it was coming before she married them. Exactly. But here's what's interesting. In each case, the windfall wasn't public knowledge. These weren't predictable events. Brighton's grandfather was healthy. No one expected him to die. Ashford's IPO was a surprise to industry analysts. Chen's lawsuit was considered unwinnable. Laurent's acquisition came out of nowhere. So how did she know? Marcus pulled up another document. Gordon Reeves. He's not just a private investigator. He's a specialist in financial forensics and corporate espionage. He has connections inside law firms, hospitals, investment banks. I think he identifies the targets, men who are about to come into serious money but don't know it yet. And then Vivian moves in. But how did she know about the house? I didn't tell anyone except my lawyer until a month ago. Your lawyer, Susan Carmichael, right? He pulled up another file. Susan's paralegal is named Jennifer Hastings. Jennifer has a brother named Todd Hastings. Todd Hastings used to work for Gordon Reeves. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. They've been watching me. For how long? At least a year. Maybe longer. I found records of Reeves running background checks on you 18 months ago, before Daniel ever met Vivian at that charity gala that she never actually attended. Why me? Why target my family? Marcus hesitated, then pulled up a news article from 2 years ago. Do you remember this? The feature in Business Monthly about successful single mothers in corporate America? I remembered. They'd interviewed me about balancing my hospital administration career with raising Daniel alone. I'd talked about the sacrifices, the struggles, the eventual success. I'd mentioned, God, how could I have been so stupid? I'd mentioned that I was planning to retire and that I wanted to give Daniel the kind of security I never had growing up. They read that article and saw a mark. A wealthy mother desperate to prove her love through money. A son who might be resentful about his childhood. A perfect target for their operation. But it's been 2 years. Why wait so long? Because they needed to time it perfectly. They needed to wait until you were actually retired, until you'd liquidated your assets, until you were vulnerable and isolated. And they needed to prepare Daniel to slowly poison him against you. Daniel's in on it. The words came out flat, dead. He has to be. Those recordings Vivian played, that was really him. He really feels that way about me. Maybe. Or maybe they edited the recordings, took sentences out of context, made it sound worse than it was. But Marcus looked at me with such sadness in his eyes. Even if the recordings are real, even if Daniel has resentment towards you, that doesn't mean he's part of the con. Vivian is a master manipulator. She could have drawn those feelings out of him, validated them, amplified them, without him ever realizing he was being used. Then I need to talk to him, really talk to him, without Vivian there. You can't. She's watching him constantly now. She knows we're getting close. She'll never let you two be alone together. I stared at the spreadsheet of victims. 5 men, 5 marriages, millions of dollars stolen. And now, my son was number 6. What happened to them? The other victims? Where are they now? Marcus's expression darkened. Thomas Brighton committed suicide 3 years ago. Robert Ashford had a nervous breakdown and is in a psychiatric facility. Michael Chen moved to Singapore and refuses to discuss what happened. David Laurent is the interesting one. Why? Because he fought back. After his divorce from Vivian, after she disappeared with half his money, he hired investigators. He tracked her for 2 years. He was building a case, gathering evidence, preparing to expose her entire operation. What happened? He died. Car accident on a highway outside Portland. Single vehicle crash. Police ruled it an accident. He'd been drinking, lost control of the car. But Laurent's lawyer told me Laurent hadn't touched alcohol in 5 years. He was in recovery, serious about it. No way he was driving drunk. The implication hung in the air between us. Murder. Not just fraud, not just manipulation, but murder. Marcus, we need to go to the police, right now, with everything we have. With what? Circumstantial evidence? A pattern of marriages that aren't illegal? Suspicions about an accident that was ruled unintentional? Margaret, we have nothing concrete, nothing that would hold up in court, nothing that would protect Daniel or convince him that Vivian is dangerous. Then what do? We get proof, real proof. Evidence of the conspiracy, evidence of the financial crimes, evidence that connects Reeves and Vivian directly to the victims. But we have less than 24 hours to do it. How? Marcus pulled up an email on his laptop. David Laurent's lawyer sent me this an hour ago. Laurent kept files, digital files, hidden in encrypted cloud storage. His lawyer has the passwords, but never knew what to do with the information. She's willing to share it with us if we promise to finish what Laurent started. What's in the files? Everything. Communications between Vivian and Reeves going back 7 years, financial records, plans, targets, and something else. He paused, his face grave. Laurent found out about another partner, someone higher up in the organization, someone with access to confidential information from multiple sources, medical records, legal documents, corporate filings, someone who feeds Reeves the intelligence he needs to identify targets. Who? Laurent didn't know. He was killed before he could find out, but he had suspicions, names of people in his life who might have had access. And Margaret, one of those names is someone you know, someone close to you. My blood ran cold. Who? Before Marcus could answer, his phone rang. Unknown number. He looked at me, hesitated, then answered on speaker. Marcus Richardson? A man's voice. Professional. Cold. Gordon Reeves. Yes. I'm going to say this once, so listen carefully. Stop investigating Vivian Chen. Stop helping Margaret Morrison. Delete every file you've collected, every piece of evidence you've found. Do it now, or there will be consequences. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I know about your daughter, Marcus. Emma, right? 8 years old, lives with your ex-wife in Connecticut, goes to Meadowbrook Elementary, takes the bus home every Tuesday and Thursday because her mother works late. Marcus's face went white. If you touch my daughter, I won't have to touch her. I'll just make a phone call, report suspicious activity around the school, mention your name, suggest you've been displaying inappropriate interest in children. The investigation alone will destroy your life, your custody arrangements, your business, everything. The line went dead. Marcus sat frozen, his hands trembling. He threatened Emma. He threatened my 8-year-old daughter. We're going to the police, right now. And tell them what? That I received a threatening phone call? They'll ask what I did to provoke it. They'll start digging into why someone would threaten me. They'll discover I've been investigating people, accessing private information, possibly breaking privacy laws in the process. Margaret, if we go to the police now, with what we have, we might not be the ones who end up protected. Then what do? In that moment, alone, I knew there was no turning back. But I found myself thinking, if you were in my shoes, would you have the courage to face it, or would you stay silent to survive? Write in the comments. I really want to know. Marcus looked at me with eyes full of fear and determination. We set a trap. We make Vivian and Reeves think they've won. We give them exactly what they want, and then we catch them in the act. How? We wire the money. All $500,000. But we do it in a way that creates an electronic trail they can't erase. We involve the FBI without them knowing. We coordinate with Laurent's lawyer to release his files at exactly the right moment. We turn their own system against them. And if it doesn't work, then we disappear. Both of us. We take Daniel if we can, leave him if we can't, and we run. Because, Margaret, these people don't just destroy lives. They end them. And if we fail, we're next. I sat in my bank at 10 o'clock the next morning, my hands steady as I signed the wire transfer authorization. $500,000. Half my remaining retirement savings, about to be sent to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands that Vivian had specified. But this wasn't surrender. This was war. Marcus had spent all night coordinating with David Laurent's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Oakes, who'd been waiting years for someone to finish what her client had started. She'd connected us with an FBI agent named Sarah Chen, no relation to Vivian's various aliases, who specialized in financial fraud and organized crime. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. The wire transfer would go through, but Agent Chen had arranged for flags on the account. The moment the money was accessed, moved, or withdrawn, the FBI would be notified. They'd track every transaction, every transfer, every person who touched those funds. And Patricia Oakes would simultaneously release David Laurent's encrypted files to a secure FBI server. The evidence would be irrefutable. Conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, possibly murder, if the files contained what Patricia believed they did. But there was a problem. A significant problem that Agent Chen had explained to us at 3 a.m. Wire fraud is federal, she'd said. But to make charges stick, we need proof of interstate commerce violations, proof of conspiracy, and ideally, proof of ongoing criminal activity. Your case against Vivian Chen is strong, but it's historical. Past crimes. What we need is to catch her in the act of committing a new crime. Today. The extortion, I'd said. She's extorting me right now. Yes, but she's smart. She hasn't put anything in writing. No emails, no texts, nothing traceable. Just verbal threats that you can't prove. We need her to incriminate herself on record. We need a confession. Which meant I had to go back to the Victorian house, back to face Vivian and Reeves. But this time, I'd be wearing a wire. The bank manager, Mr. Peterson, slid the confirmation papers across his desk. Mrs. Morrison, I have to say this is highly unusual. Are you certain you want to proceed with this transfer? The destination account raises several red flags in our system. I'm certain. And you understand that once the funds are transferred to an offshore account, recovery is nearly impossible? I understand. What he didn't understand was that I had no intention of letting those funds stay there. What he didn't know was that Agent Chen was in the parking lot right now, waiting to fit me with a recording device that looked like a simple pendant necklace. The transfer was complete by 10:30. My phone rang exactly 2 minutes later. Margaret. Vivian's voice was smooth, satisfied. I just received notification that the funds are in transit. You made the right choice. When will you leave? When will you leave Daniel alone? Soon, very soon. But first, we need to meet one more time. At the house. Noon. I have some documents for you to sign. Non-disclosure agreements, paperwork ensuring you'll never speak about our arrangement. Surely you understand. I understand. My voice was hollow, defeated. Exactly what she expected to hear. Come alone, Margaret. No Marcus, no lawyers, no police. Just you and me, settling our business like civilized women. Can you do that? Yes. She hung up without another word. Agent Chen fitted the wire in her SUV, her movements quick and professional. The pendant was perfect. A simple silver locket that looked like something a grandmother would wear. Inside was a recording device so sensitive it could pick up whispers from across a room. Remember, Agent Chen said, adjusting the chain around my neck. Get her to say it out loud. The extortion, the previous victims, her partnership with Reeves. The more specific, the better. And Margaret, if at any point you feel unsafe, if the situation escalates, you say the word lighthouse. That's the code. My team will come in immediately. How many agents will be there? 6, positioned around the property. You won't see them, but they'll be watching, listening, ready to move the second you need them. I looked at my reflection in the SUV's mirror. I looked old, tired, defeated, perfect. What about Daniel? What happens to him when this is over? Agent Chen's expression softened. If he's a victim of manipulation, if there's no evidence he was knowingly involved in the conspiracy, then he walks away, traumatized probably, angry at Vivian, maybe angry at you for exposing it, but alive and free. And if he was involved? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I arrived at the Victorian house at 11:55. Both Vivian's Mercedes and Reeves's black SUV were in the driveway. I sat in my car for a moment, taking deep breaths, feeling the weight of the wire around my neck. Then I walked to the front door and knocked. Vivian answered immediately, smiling like we were old friends meeting for lunch. "Margaret, right on time. Please, come in." The living room had been staged since yesterday. 2 chairs facing each other. A coffee table between them with a stack of legal documents. Reeves standing by the fireplace like a silent guard. "Sit," Vivian said, gesturing to one of the chairs. "Would you like coffee? Water? I want this to be over." "Of course you do." She sat across from me, crossing her legs elegantly. "The money has been received and verified. Congratulations, Margaret. You've just purchased your son's happiness. Surely that's worth $500,000. When will you leave him?" "Oh, I'm not leaving him. Not yet." She smiled at my confusion. "Did you think I'd just disappear? Walk away from a marriage I've invested 9 months in? No, Margaret, I'm going to stay married to Daniel for at least a year. Maybe 2. I'm going to be the perfect wife, and you're going to be the supportive mother-in-law who finally accepted me. That wasn't our deal. Our deal was that you'd pay me $500,000 and I wouldn't release the recordings of Daniel saying he wished you were dead. I've kept my end. The recordings are deleted. Daniel's reputation is safe, but I never promised to leave. That was your assumption. Rage burned through me, but I forced it down. I needed her to keep talking. I needed her to incriminate herself more. This isn't about Daniel, is it? This is about the money. You're a con artist. You've done this before. Con artist? Vivian laughed. Such an ugly term. I prefer relationship strategist. I identify men with resources and low emotional intelligence. I become exactly what they need, and in exchange, I take what I deserve. It's not so different from what you did, Margaret. You traded time and sacrifice for your son's supposed love. I trade affection and companionship for financial security. We're both in the transaction business. How many? How many men have you done this to? Does it matter? They all recovered. Well, most of them. She glanced at Reeves, who shifted slightly. The weak ones didn't survive the truth about themselves, but that's hardly my fault. David Laurent didn't survive. He was building a case against you, and he died. The smile never left her face, but her eyes went cold. Accidents happen, Margaret, especially to people who can't let go of the past. Especially to people who think they can expose me. Like you're going to make an accident happen to me? You? No. You're useful. You're going to be the loving grandmother to my children someday. You're going to wire more money when Daniel and I need it. You're going to smile at family dinners and pretend everything is perfect. Because if you don't, if you ever try to expose what I am, I'll destroy your son completely. I'll show him those recordings. I'll convince him you paid me to leave him because you're jealous and controlling. I'll turn him against you so thoroughly he'll never speak to you again. Unless I pay you more money. Exactly. See? You're learning. This isn't a one-time payment, Margaret. This is a subscription service. Every year, you'll wire another 100,000, maybe 200, depending on our needs. And in exchange, I'll let you remain part of Daniel's life. I'll even let you visit your grandchildren. Isn't that generous of me? I felt the rage building, threatening to overwhelm my composure. But I needed more. I needed her to mention Reeves's role. I needed names of other victims. You couldn't do this alone. Who helps you? How do you find the targets? Vivian leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That's the genius of it, Margaret. We have someone inside, someone with access to confidential records, legal documents, medical files, financial information. They identify men who are about to come into money, inheritances, settlements, business deals, before it's public knowledge. Then Gordon does the background work. And I move in. Who? Who's your inside source? She smiled. Someone you know. Someone close to you. Someone who helped us understand exactly how to manipulate Daniel. Someone who told us about the house months before you mentioned it to anyone else. My blood ran cold. Susan, my lawyer. Not Susan, but you're getting warmer. Think, Margaret. Who was with you when you first discussed retiring? Who knew about your assets before anyone else? Who had access to your private medical records, your financial statements, your family history? The realization hit me like a physical blow. My assistant, Jennifer. She's been with me for 15 years. 20 years, actually. And she's been working with Gordon for 10 of them. Patient, loyal Jennifer, who knew everything about your life, who knew Daniel's weaknesses, who knew exactly when to introduce Vivian into the picture. She's been quite invaluable. Reeves stepped forward. That's enough, V. She's got what she came for. But Vivian was enjoying herself too much to stop. Oh, Gordon, don't be such a spoilsport. Margaret deserves to know the full scope of her failure. Don't you, Margaret? Don't you want to know how completely we've infiltrated your life? The FBI knows everything, I said quietly. They're listening right now. The room went silent. Vivian's smile froze. Reeves's hand went to his jacket. What did you say? Vivian's voice was ice. I touched the pendant around my neck. I said the FBI is listening. Every word you've spoken, every admission, every threat. They're outside right now. Reeves pulled out a gun. Lighthouse, I said clearly. Lighthouse, lighthouse, lighthouse. The front door exploded inward. FBI, drop the weapon, hands where I can see them. Agent Chen came through first, followed by 4 other agents, all with weapons drawn. Reeves hesitated for one terrible second, the gun still in his hand, pointed at me. Don't be stupid, Gordon, Agent Chen said. It's over. We have everything. The wire transfers, Laurent's files, the recordings from today. Put the gun down. Slowly, Reeves lowered the weapon and placed it on the floor. Vivian sat frozen in her chair, her face a mask of disbelief. You wore a wire? You stupid, stupid woman. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've stopped you, I said, standing on shaking legs. I've protected my son, and I've made sure you never hurt anyone else again. As the agents handcuffed both Vivian and Reeves, reading them their rights, I walked outside into the cold morning air. My phone was buzzing. Multiple messages from Daniel. The first one made my heart stop. Mom, where are you? Vivian is missing. Her car is here, but she's gone. I'm scared something happened. Please call me. He didn't know. He had no idea what his wife really was, what she'd done, what she'd planned to do to both of us. Agent Chen came out behind me. We need to bring Daniel in for questioning, to determine his level of involvement. He's innocent. He has to be. We'll find out. But Margaret, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that he knew more than you think, that he was more involved than you want to believe. As they took Vivian and Reeves away in separate vehicles, Vivian turned and looked at me through the window. No fear in her eyes, no regret, just cold calculation. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. Not really. Because somewhere out there, Jennifer, my assistant of 20 years, was still free, still had access to information, still knew how to find new victims. The conspiracy was bigger than Vivian and Reeves. It was a network, and we'd only cut off one branch. The FBI field office smelled like burnt coffee and fear. I sat in a small interview room, watching through a one-way mirror as Agent Chen questioned Vivian in the next room. My son was somewhere in this building too, in another room, answering questions about his wife, his marriage, his mother. I hadn't seen him yet. Agent Chen said it was better that way. Let him process the shock first. Let him understand what Vivian is before he has to face you. But I needed to see him. I needed to look into his eyes and know, really know, if he'd been part of this. Patricia Oakes, David Laurent's lawyer, sat beside me with her laptop open, showing me the files her dead client had compiled. 7 years of investigation, hundreds of pages of evidence, and names. So many names. Jennifer Hayes, Patricia said, pulling up a file. Your assistant. She's been with Gordon Reeves's organization for 12 years, not 10. Started as a paralegal at a firm where Reeves worked as an investigator. They recruited her when they realized she had access to sensitive client information. Over the years, she's moved from firm to firm, always positioning herself close to wealthy individuals. She's been spying on me for 12 years? Not at first. Initially, you weren't the target. But when that magazine article came out 2 years ago, when you talked about wanting to give Daniel security, she flagged you, brought you to Reeves's attention, started feeding him information about your finances, your health, your relationships, everything he needed to know to build a profile. I thought about Jennifer. Sweet, efficient Jennifer, who never forgot a birthday, who always had my coffee ready, who'd been at my side through my retirement planning, my asset liquidation, my preparations for giving Daniel the house. Every conversation, every document, every private moment, all reported back to Reeves. Where is she now? We don't know. She hasn't been to work in 3 days. Her apartment is empty, bank accounts cleaned out. She's in the wind. Agent Chen entered the room, her expression grim. We have a problem. Vivian's lawyer just arrived, high-powered defense attorney from New York. He's already making noise about illegal wire recordings, entrapment, coercion. Says his client was threatened into making false confessions. That's insane. You heard what she said? I heard a woman having a conversation with someone who was secretly recording her. A woman who might have been playing along, saying outrageous things because she suspected a wire and wanted to create reasonable doubt. Agent Chen sat down heavily. Margaret, Vivian's lawyer is good, very good. He's already identified 3 potential constitutional violations in how we conducted this operation. If he files the right motions, everything she said today could be inadmissible. What about the money, the wire transfer? That's proof. It's proof she received money, not proof of extortion. She can claim it was a gift, a settlement, a private family matter. Without the recording being admissible, we don't have enough for criminal charges. So she walks, after everything she's done? Unless we find more evidence, unless Jennifer surfaces and turns state's evidence, unless one of the previous victims comes forward with something concrete. Right now, all we have is circumstantial connections and a potentially inadmissible recording. The door opened and another agent entered. Agent Chen, Daniel Morrison is asking to see his mother. My heart jumped. Can I? 5 minutes, Agent Chen said. Supervised. And Margaret, be careful what you say. Anything discussed could become relevant to the investigation. They led me to another interview room. Daniel was sitting at a metal table, his head in his hands. When I entered, he looked up, and I barely recognized him. His face was pale, his eyes red from crying, his expression devastated. Mom, he whispered. I wanted to run to him, to hold him, to tell him everything would be okay. But the agent standing in the corner reminded me that nothing was private here. Nothing was safe. Daniel, They told me everything. About Vivian, about the other marriages, about the money, about Gordon Reeves. His voice broke. They asked me if I was part of it, if I knew, if I helped her target you. What did you tell them? The truth, that I had no idea, that I loved her, that I thought she loved me. He looked at me with such pain in his eyes. But they don't believe me. They think I'm lying. They showed me evidence, bank statements, emails, records of conversations. They think I was part of the conspiracy to steal from you. Were you? The question hung between us. His face crumpled. How can you ask me that? How can you think I would? He stopped, seeing something in my expression. You do think that. You actually believe I could steal from you. That I could plot with Vivian to... My God, Mom, what kind of person do you think I am? I don't know anymore, I said quietly. The recordings Vivian played for me. You saying you wished I would disappear? That you wished I died instead of Dad? Were those real? He flinched, like I'd slapped him. You heard those? She played them for me. Said she had hours of recordings. Proof that you hated me. That you wanted my money and nothing else. Daniel was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. We had a fight, 3 weeks ago. About the wedding, about you coming late, about always putting your work first. I said things, angry things, things I didn't mean. Vivian recorded it without telling me. I didn't know. But you said them. Yes. He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. I said them. Because in that moment, I meant them. Because I've been angry at you for so long, Mom. Angry about the missed birthdays. The broken promises, the way you always chose work over me, the way you turned every conversation into a reminder of your sacrifices. I've been angry for years, and Vivian, she understood that. She listened. She validated those feelings, and now I see she was using them, using my pain to manipulate me, to manipulate both of us. The toast, at the wedding. You let her call me a filthy old woman. You smiled. I was drunk, exhausted, overwhelmed. And she told me it was just a joke, that you weren't there anyway, that it didn't matter. I'm not making excuses. I should have stopped her. I should have defended you, but I didn't, and I'll have to live with that forever. Agent Chen entered the room. Time's up. Daniel, we need to continue the interview. Wait, I said. Just tell me one thing. Did you know about the house? Did you know I was planning to give it to you before Vivian called the realtor? Daniel shook his head. Not until 2 weeks before the wedding. She told me you'd mentioned it to her, that it was supposed to be a surprise. I was grateful, touched. I thought it meant you'd finally forgiven me for not being the perfect son. I thought it meant we could start over. Agent Chen's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression changed. Say that again? You're sure? She hung up and looked at me with something like shock in her eyes. What is it? I asked. Jennifer Hayes just walked into the Boston FBI office. She's offering to turn state's evidence in exchange for immunity. She says she has proof that Vivian and Reeves weren't working alone. She says there's a mastermind, someone coordinating multiple operations across the country, someone who's been running this conspiracy for over 15 years. Who? She won't say until she has immunity in writing. But Margaret, she specifically asked for you to be present during her confession. She said you need to hear this, that you deserve to know the truth about who's really been controlling your life. Daniel grabbed my hand. Mom, don't. It could be a trap. It could be... I have to know, I said. I have to hear what she has to say. Agent Chen nodded. We're arranging a video conference. Jennifer's in Boston. We're here. It'll take an hour to set up. But Margaret, before you agree to this, you need to understand. What you're about to learn might be worse than anything you've discovered so far. Jennifer implied that the conspiracy goes deeper than we thought, that people you trust, people close to you, might be involved. I don't care. I need the truth. All of it. An hour later, I sat in a conference room with Agent Chen, Patricia Oakes, and 2 federal prosecutors. On the screen in front of us was Jennifer Hayes, my assistant, my friend, the woman who'd been betraying me for over a decade. She looked different, harder. Her hair was cut short, dyed blonde, but her eyes, those were the same eyes that had looked at me every day with false concern, false loyalty. Hello, Margaret, she said. Why? It was all I could manage. Because I could. Because you were so easy to read, so predictable. Because you trusted me completely and never once questioned my loyalty. She leaned forward. But I'm not the one you should be angry at. I was just following orders, doing what I was told. The real person you should hate, the one who's been orchestrating this from the beginning, is someone much closer to you. Who? Jennifer smiled, cold and cruel. Your lawyer, Susan Carmichael. She's been running this operation for 17 years. She recruits people like me, trains us, places us with wealthy targets. She identifies the victims, plans the cons, takes a percentage of every score. Vivian and Reeves, they're just employees. Disposable assets. Susan is the mastermind behind everything. The room spun. Susan, my lawyer for 20 years, my friend. The woman who'd helped me through my husband's death, my career challenges, my retirement planning. The woman who knew every detail of my financial life. That's impossible. Susan is rich, successful, respected, yes. And how do you think she got that way? Legal fees? Please. She's been running cons for almost 2 decades, targeting her own clients, using their trust against them. You're just the latest, Margaret. And you're not even the biggest score. There are dozens of others. Maybe hundreds. Agent Chen leaned forward. Can you prove this? Can you provide evidence that Susan Carmichael is directing this conspiracy? I can provide everything. Emails, bank records, recording of planning sessions, names of other victims, other accomplices, the entire network. But first, I need full immunity. In writing, witness protection, a new identity. Because if Susan finds out I've turned on her, I'm dead. Just like David Laurent, just like the others who tried to expose her. One of the prosecutors spoke up. The others? There were others beyond Laurent? 3 others, all ruled accidents or suicides, all investigated by police departments where Susan had connections, all buried before anyone could connect the dots. I felt sick. Why are you telling us this? Why turn on her now? Jennifer's expression shifted, something almost like regret crossing her features. Because she crossed a line. Targeting you was one thing. That was business. But when she ordered Reeves to threaten Marcus's daughter, when she made it personal, when she started involving children, that's when I knew I had to get out. I've done terrible things, Margaret. I've helped destroy lives. But I won't be part of hurting children. That's where I draw the line. So you have a conscience after all, I said bitterly. No, I just have limits. There's a difference. She looked directly at the camera, directly at me. Susan is planning something, Margaret. Something bigger than the house, bigger than the money. She's not done with you yet. Even with Vivian arrested, even with the operation exposed, she has a backup plan. She always has a backup plan. And if you don't stop her soon, if you don't act before she realizes I've turned, she'll disappear. She'll take everything. Your assets, your reputation, possibly your life, and you'll never see her coming. What's the backup plan? Agent Chen demanded. I don't know the details. She keeps that information compartmentalized. But I know it involves Daniel. I know it involves making you look unstable, paranoid, possibly dangerous. I know she's been preparing for the possibility that Vivian's operation might fail. And I know that when Susan Carmichael has a backup plan, people end up dead. The screen went dark as the prosecutors stepped out to discuss immunity. I sat in the silence, trying to process everything. Susan. All this time, it had been Susan, the woman who'd held my hand at my husband's funeral, who'd celebrated with me when Daniel got into college, who'd advised me on every major decision for 2 decades. She'd been the puppet master all along, pulling strings, destroying lives, stealing futures. And now she knew her operation was exposed. Now she knew Vivian was arrested. Now she knew she was running out of time, which meant whatever backup plan she had, whatever final move she was preparing to make, it was happening now. Agent Chen's phone rang again. She answered, listened, and her face went white. What is it? I asked. Susan Carmichael just withdrew $5 million from various accounts. Cash. She's moving money in preparation to run. And Margaret, she paused, her voice tight. She just called Daniel, told him she has information about you. Evidence that you've been mentally unstable, that you've been stealing from your own accounts, that you're a danger to yourself and others. She's convinced him to meet her, alone, in 1 hour. It's a trap. She's going to kill him, or convince him to kill you, or make it look like a murder-suicide. We don't know, but she's making her move, and if we don't stop her in the next hour, someone is going to die. Susan had chosen the location carefully, her lake house, 2 hours north of the city, isolated. Private, the perfect place for whatever she had planned. Agent Chen coordinated the response team during the drive. FBI tactical units were already en route, but they'd arrive after us. We couldn't wait. Daniel was walking into a trap, and every minute counted. She'll have an exit strategy, Patricia Oakes said from the back seat. Boat on the lake, car with fake plates, probably a private plane waiting at a small airfield nearby. She's been planning this escape for years. My phone rang. Susan's name on the screen. I answered on speaker. Margaret, darling, I hear you've had quite an eventful day. Her voice was warm, friendly, exactly as it had always been. The FBI must be filling your head with such terrible stories about me. They're not stories, Susan. I know everything. Jennifer told us. Ah, Jennifer. I always knew she'd be the weak link. Too sentimental, too soft. That's why I never told her about the real plan. Susan laughed, light and careless. You're coming here, aren't you? To save Daniel? How predictably maternal of you. If you hurt him? Margaret, I would never hurt Daniel. He's perfect exactly as he is. Angry, resentful, desperate for approval. Do you know what he told me an hour ago? He said he'd do anything to prove he wasn't part of Vivian's scheme. Anything to show you he's trustworthy. Poor boy. So easy to manipulate when he's emotionally vulnerable. My stomach dropped. What did you ask him to do? Nothing terrible, Just sign a few documents. Power of attorney forms, actually. Giving him complete control over your remaining assets. For your own protection, of course, since you're clearly having a mental health crisis. All very legal, all very airtight. Once he signs, once I witness it, your fortune becomes his. And once it's his, well, accidents happen to elderly mothers all the time. The FBI knows. They're listening right now. I'm sure they are. But they're too far away, Margaret. By the time they arrive, Daniel will have signed the documents. You'll have suffered a tragic accident, and I'll be gone, along with the evidence. Jennifer can testify all she wants, without physical proof, without Susan Carmichael to arrest, without a body. What do they really have? They have Vivian. They have Reeves. They'll talk. They'll try to make deals, certainly. But Vivian has never met me in person. All our communication went through intermediaries. Reeves knows my voice from phone calls, nothing more. Jennifer has emails from addresses that will disappear, bank transfers from accounts that no longer exist. I've been very careful, Margaret, very thorough. The only person who can truly destroy me is standing in my lake house right now, holding a pen, ready to sign away your life. The call ended. We arrived at the lake house 40 minutes later. Daniel's car was in the driveway. Lights were on inside. Through the windows, I could see movement. 2 figures in the study. Agent Chen checked her weapon. Tactical team is 15 minutes out. We should wait. We don't have 15 minutes. I walked to the front door. It was unlocked. Inside, the house was exactly as I remembered. Warm, elegant, filled with photos of Susan's supposedly perfect life. All of it a lie. I found them in the study. Daniel sat at Susan's desk, papers spread in front of him. Susan stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, maternal and concerned. Mom! Daniel stood. Thank God you're here. Susan's been explaining everything. She has proof that Vivian was working with someone inside your own staff. She thinks you might be in danger. Daniel, step away from her, right now. Margaret, please, Susan said smoothly. I know you're upset. The FBI has filled your head with paranoid delusions. But think about what you're accusing me of. 20 years of friendship, of loyalty, and you believe I'm some kind of criminal mastermind? It's absurd. Show me the papers, Daniel, the ones she wants you to sign. He hesitated, then held them up. Power of attorney documents, exactly as Susan had described. She said it's for your protection, that if anything happens to you, I'll be able to manage your affairs without legal complications. If anything happens to me? Daniel, she's planning to kill me, tonight, and make you the prime suspect. Susan's laugh was genuine, delighted. Oh, Margaret, always so dramatic. Kill you? Why would I do that when you're doing such a wonderful job of destroying yourself? Look at you. Wild accusations, paranoid theories, turning your own son against a woman who's only trying to help. You sound unhinged, darling. Mentally unstable. Perhaps dangerous. Agent Chen, I called out. You're recording this, right? Susan's smile never wavered. Of course they are. And they're hearing a concerned friend trying to help a disturbed woman. Words can be interpreted so many ways, can't they? She moved quickly, pulling a gun from her desk drawer and pressing it to Daniel's temple before anyone could react. Don't move, she said calmly. Any of you. Margaret, I assume you're wearing another wire. Tell your FBI friends that if anyone enters this house in the next 10 minutes, Daniel dies. Tell them I have a boat waiting. Tell them I'll release him once I'm safely away. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But if they interfere, he definitely dies. Do you understand? I raised my hand slowly. Susan, please. This is over. Jennifer's testimony, the evidence, is circumstantial at best. Without me, without a confession, without a body, they have nothing that will stand up in court. But I'm nothing if not thorough. She pressed the gun harder against Daniel's head. Sign the papers, Daniel. Give your mother one last gift. Save her the indignity of a competency hearing. Don't, I said. Daniel, whatever you do, don't sign those papers. He looked between us, terrified, confused. I don't understand. Susan, you're my godmother. You've known me my whole life. Why would you? Because you're profitable, Susan said simply. Your mother is profitable. Her guilt, her desperate need to prove her love through money, her willingness to sacrifice everything for you, it made her the perfect mark. And you, sweet Daniel, With your abandonment issues and your resentment and your need for validation, you made it all so easy. Through the window, I saw shadows moving. The tactical team getting into position. Susan saw them too. "Time's up," she said. "Everyone in the center of the room. Now, or I pull this trigger and we see how fast your FBI friends can save him." We moved. Agent Chen, Patricia Oakes, myself, all of us clustering together as Susan maneuvered Daniel toward the back door, the gun never leaving his head. "Susan," I said quietly, "you don't have to do this. You're brilliant. You're successful. You don't need the money." "It's not about need, Margaret. It's about winning. About proving I can take everything from people like you. Privileged, comfortable people who've never had to fight for anything. You think your sacrifices made you noble? You had choices. You had opportunities. People like me, we had to create our own. And I've created an empire." She was at the door now, Daniel stumbling backward with her. "I'll let him go once I'm clear. You have my word. Your word means nothing. True, but it's all you have." The door burst open, not from outside, but from the hallway. Marcus stood there, something in his hand. A phone, showing a video. "Susan Carmichael," he said loudly, clearly. "Also known as Susan Chen, also known as Sandra Morrison, also known as Sarah Brighton. You've been running this operation for 17 years, using your law practice as cover. I have evidence. I have recordings from David Laurent's files. I have testimony from 8 victims, and I have this. Video of you meeting with Gordon Reeves 2 weeks ago, discussing the Margaret Morrison operation. Discussing how to eliminate witnesses if necessary. Say hello to the camera, Susan. Your confession is being live-streamed to the FBI right now." For the first time, Susan's composure cracked. The gun wavered. Daniel moved, twisting away from her grip. Agent Chen fired, not at Susan, but at the gun, knocking it from her hand. The tactical team swarmed through the back door. It was over in seconds. Susan on the ground, handcuffed, still trying to bargain even as they read her rights. Daniel collapsed into my arms, trembling. "Mom. Oh God, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." I held him as he cried. My son, alive, safe, finally free from the manipulation that had poisoned our relationship. But even as the FBI led Susan away, even as Agent Chen assured me it was over, I couldn't shake one thought. How many others were out there? How many more victims? How many other Susans running their own operations? The war might be won, but the battle was far from over. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of a small apartment in Portland, my new home. Modest, simple, nothing like the life I'd built over 40 years. The FBI had recovered some of my assets, but Susan had hidden millions in offshore accounts that might never be found. The Victorian house had been sold to cover legal fees. My retirement was gone, but I was alive. And so was Daniel. He visited every Sunday now. We were rebuilding, slowly, carefully. Therapy helped, both individual and together. We talked about the resentment, the missed moments, the ways we'd both failed each other. It wasn't easy. Some wounds were too deep to heal completely, but we were trying. "Mom, I brought lunch," Daniel said, setting bags on my small kitchen table. He looked healthier now. The haunted look had faded from his eyes, replaced by something quieter. Sadness, maybe. Wisdom earned through pain. "How's the new job?" I asked. "Good. Strange, starting over at 34. But Marcus has been great. The consulting firm is small, but honest." He smiled slightly. "I check everyone's background 3 times now. Trust issues, the therapist calls it. Justified caution, I call it." We ate in comfortable silence. Then Daniel pulled out an envelope. "This came yesterday. Thought you should see it." Inside was a letter from Patricia Oakes. Susan's trial had concluded. Guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. 17 years to life. Vivian and Reeves had taken plea deals, their testimonies sealing Susan's fate. Jennifer was in witness protection, her immunity granted. But the letter contained something else. A list of names, 37 victims that Susan's operation had destroyed. Beside each name, an amount stolen. The total was staggering, over $200 million across nearly 2 decades. "They're forming a support group," Daniel said quietly. "Victims and their families. People who lost everything to Susan and her network. Patricia thought we might want to join. Do you want to? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to move on, forget this ever happened. But another part thinks, maybe sharing our story could help others. Maybe it could prevent someone else from falling into the same trap. I thought about the other victims, the families destroyed, the lives shattered. And I thought about my own journey, from comfortable retirement to near death, from blind trust to hard-won wisdom. Let's go, I said. Let's tell our story. Daniel smiled, real and genuine. Together? Together. That evening, as he left, he hugged me at the door. A real hug, not the perfunctory embrace we'd shared for years. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry it took almost losing you to remember that. I love you too, and I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to earn it. After he left, I poured myself tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Dinner next week? There's someone I want you to meet. Another victim of Susan's network. She has questions only you can answer. Another victim, another story, another chance to help someone find their way out of the darkness. I typed back, yes, send me the details. The journey wasn't over. There were still 36 other victims out there. Still questions unanswered. Still fragments of Susan's network operating in the shadows, waiting for their next target. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd faced the worst: betrayal, manipulation, near death, and survived. I'd lost almost everything, but I'd gained something more valuable: the truth about who I was, what mattered, and what I was capable of when pushed to my limits. I wasn't the same Margaret Morrison who'd walked into that wedding reception 6 months ago. That woman had been wealthy, but empty, successful, but alone, generous, but disconnected. This Margaret was different, scarred, but stronger, poorer, but richer in the things that mattered, and finally at peace with the woman in the mirror. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Morrison, my name is Rebecca Thornton. Patricia Oakes gave me your number. I think I'm being targeted by someone like Susan. There's a woman my father just married. She knew things she shouldn't know. She's too perfect, too prepared. And I found photos of her with a man who looks like the Gordon Reeves I saw on the news. Please, I don't know who else to call. I don't know who to trust. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what she was asking. To help, to get involved, to risk everything again. Then I opened them and made my choice. Tell me everything, I said, from the beginning. And Rebecca, you did the right thing by calling. You're not alone anymore. As she began her story, I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. Another case, another fight, another chance to stop predators like Susan from destroying innocent lives. The war wasn't over. It might never be over. But this time, I was ready. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like, and share it with someone special who needs to hear what I lived through. This is a space of love and respect, and every day there's a different story of strong, courageous women who never gave up.